Okay. I wanted to begin by saying welcome to our teacher who's here from Fukushima to give us lessons that we need to learn in order to move forward. And I don't speak Japanese, but I have a little thank you or welcome for her, which is Watashi no sensei irarashaimase. Chikako Nishiyama is from the village of Kawauchi in Fukushima, Japan. And she made her trip to New England to offer her eyewitness report on the Fukushima nuclear disaster. So she has firsthand accounts of her own travail as well as that from others in her own village. And she made her trip here to tell the story. Kawauchi is about 15 miles southwest of the stricken Fukushima nuclear reactors, and the 2,300 people who lived there were evacuated. A year later, they were told it was safe to return, but most still stayed away. I found out tonight that only about 15% of the town has returned, even though the government is telling them they're safe. 2 years later, most people haven't returned. Ms. Nishiyama has been an outspoken and very courageous critic of TEPCO's and the Japanese government's whole handling of this disaster. Her son, a firefighter in his early 20s, was assigned to go back to the village before the evacuation order was lifted. He's still stationed there today, and Chikako is very concerned for his health. She's currently working to find locales in the western part of Japan where those who want to relocate can start new lives in a more sustainable and healthy environment. And translating Chikako's story will be Chiho Kaneko. She was born in Japan's Owati Prefecture, which is about 150 miles north of the Fukushima Daiichi reactors. And I found out tonight as well that they have found radiation contamination in the soil in her hometown, which is 150 miles from Fukushima as well. She graduated from Hokkaido University with a degree in agronomy. Chiho moved to the US in 1993 and became an interpreter and translator. She's also a musician. We heard her beautiful voice tonight as she played piano. She's an artist, and she's a columnist for a Japanese daily newspaper. Her recent trip to Japan was last fall, which was her 4th visit since the March 11th, 2011 nuclear meltdowns. So we thank her, we welcome her, and she's here to tell her story. After she tells her story, we'll have some questions. She's also going to answer questions and to show some pictures as we go. So, thank you.
Hello. I came from Kawauchi, Fukushima. 今日はこのように話をさせていただくお時間をいただきましてありがとうございました。Thank you very much. 一応いろんな体験はありますけれども、話せばすごく長くなるので、一つまとめましたので、あと通訳をしてくれる金子さんにお任せする部分が一番多いんですけれども、後でまた質問という形でお答えさせていただきたいと思います。
She says thank you and thank you so much for having me here tonight, and I'm honored to be here. And there are many things that I would like to speak about my personal experience as well as things that I've heard and I witnessed, but it would take a long time. So tonight I'm going to sort of put together a rather concise talk and maybe show a couple of pictures, but hopefully you ask me questions so that we can continue the conversation. Yes. So currently the Japanese government does not protect the lives of people. That's something I have come to understand that as a reality. And so me personally, I have been working to help people who want to relocate from the disaster area away from the radiation. So currently, Chikako is in search of sort of a new places for people to relocate, maybe in the western part of Japan, and especially children. Within the 30-kilometer of the radius of nuclear power plant hurt villages, which is about a little over 15 miles, 18 miles. On the 12th, which is the day after the earthquake, she happened to see, she was at the village hall, she happens to see a couple of cars traveling at high speed. And the passengers of the car were wearing gas masks. And the car was coming from the eastern part. They didn't stop, they just went by. So on the 12th, after she saw the speeding car with people were wearing gas masks, she realized, she had a hunch that something might be happening. So by then, her sister's family, who had fled the coastal area and temporarily staying with her, she urged her sister's family to go somewhere, go away. And she also urged her parents to go away. So they did. They left on the 12th, the night of 12th. But she herself, being a village official, councilwoman, decided to stay and make sure that her village people are okay. And then on the 15th, basically the government told that the people in Kawauchi have to evacuate. That's when they were told on the 15th. But prior to that, well, they were sort of told to stay put for a little while, but eventually they would just said, you gotta go. However, the town could not find another municipality who could accept Kawauchi village people. Sorry, I keep saying back and forth town village, but it's a village, and village people. And so without recourse, village officials decided that, people, well, if you have to go, so you are on your own, just go find some place and go. So people are basically on their own, and it was a very cold March, snowing and everything. And also because of the tsunami, ports and, the basically distribution system in the north was completely disrupted. So everywhere in the north there was a gasoline shortage. So people were scrambling to get gasoline, even just to leave, to evacuate. And they're calling relatives, people whom they know elsewhere. And it was very chaotic. And she later learned that in some cases, people had to move around 5 different households because they just couldn't find a place they could stay. And on the 16th, the next day, in the morning, the town officials all were called to the village officials are called to the village hall, and they were told that, okay, the city of Koriyama, which is, she's going to point for me, which is west of, that's Kawauchi, and that's Koriyama. So it's about, I would say, 35-40 miles away from the reactor. They have a little large facility, event facility, conference facility, and that's where they agreed to accept the Kawauchi refugees. So people, those who could not leave on the 15th, who were still remaining in the village, basically got shuttled on the bus, and then they all went to Koriyama. You can see, I know you can't read the Japanese, names, but where Kawauchi is, the radiation, this is a fallout map. It's actually lower than Koriyama. Can you see that? Yeah? So Kawauchi, just a stroke of luck, the wind direction, whatever, just they went by Kawauchi, even though Kawauchi is very close to the reactor. So village official ended up moving remaining people into the higher, more radioactive city. That's the irony of it. 仙台から戻るときね。
戻る仙台から、はい戻るとき、仙台まで。
So she then went to Sendai, which is a little north of Fukushima. It's not on this map, but that's where her son was. But then she couldn't stay there, so she came back to Fukushima, Koriyama. But anyway, what she's trying to stress is that during those chaotic days, there was really no gasoline to be had in a quantity. So she had to sleep in a car for 2 nights just to get enough gasoline to get back. And that's because Rosa also crumbled by the earthquake, and then supplies are not coming. So that illustrates the really chaotic and confused situation. So the April 6th or 7th, her village council was called, I guess that there was an explanation from the government what was happening at the reactor and etc. And she basically voiced her concern that it looks like a Koriyama where the remaining people were moved has higher radiation level, and so maybe those people should be removed further away from, maybe outside of Fukushima. And she was the only person who said that, and that voice was quickly dismissed. So in June, there was the, again, council was called, and there was the TEPCO official were present to explain what was happening at the time in June, which is they laid out this containment, cold shutdown schedule, and they said, this is how we're going to do. But there was, and she asked a lot of questions about what about the potential health risk as a result of this, and they had absolutely no answer to her question. So the TEPCO, Tokyo Electric Company, TEPCO and the government, basically it was apparent that they were trying to minimize the impact of the accident. It was apparent even in June, and one example of that was that the a company, outside company, who was bidding to come into Kawauchi, they urged that decision. They still were hoping to come to Kawauchi, so they're pressing the village to make that decision, whether or not they are allowed to come in. And she thought that was really strange, because here we are, the situation was still very tentative, and it just totally unsafe on the surface. And I mean, not on the surface, in reality. And yet, they are already talking, like laying the ground for the future recovery, even in June. So, like you can see in the map, Kawauchi happens to be just strangely spared in terms of the blunt of the radiation. So, there was a massive campaign on the part of government to use Kawauchi as an example of sort of a returning to normalcy. And in September at the council, they started to talk about the massive decontamination project so that the people can return.
その時にですね、占領はいろいろ測って発表はされましたけれども、川内のやはり低いところを公表するもんだから、皆さんがこの川内は低いから帰れるっていうそういう思いになってきたのもあります。で、村の人たち。
And when the government shows the latest radiation level, the data, they tend to measure in areas where radiation levels are lower. So that's what's advertised to the public. And people who see that, feel like, okay, it's so much better. Maybe, there's a strange human psychology. They want to believe safety. They want to believe that they can go back to normal. And so that went hand in hand with people's sort of irrational desire to go home. And it just snowballed like that. So it was, to her, it was a complete shock that the mayor declared that we can return people. She just could not believe. She felt like, what about children? Okay. I mean, is that really okay to bring them back to Kawauchi? And then she just all of a sudden felt like, well, the mayor election is coming up in April. Maybe I have to do something to change this crazy policy. So returning back to normal, what it really means is that the government, a village government, is going to stay intact. And she really believed that, the first people who actually went back are the village officials, workers. Because their work, their profession is at stake if they don't go back. So they are there to protect their own system. Otherwise, the whole village is going to disappear. And she believed that was really behind this, rush to return. She ran for the mayor seat. The election day was April 22nd, and her platform was the entire village relocation, and also restitution, proper restitution from the government and TEPCO. She knew that it was an uphill battle because there are some people who didn't even say themselves, but were feeling like she was, but then there was so much money and backing from the government and TEPCO for the incumbent, and there was a lot of outside intervention for this very local election, and government and just all kinds of people were there. So she wanted to see the actual poll, being counted, and so she went to the polling place. She didn't get.
2000有効投票が2300ぐらい。
So the actual votes counted was like 2,000, maybe over 2,000, 2,300. She didn't get 100 votes. But she highly doubted the results. She has reason to believe so. She felt like, okay, well, it was, lost, but if she didn't do it, then she would regret for the rest of her life. So, she did everything she could in her conscience. And so she feels okay about it and good about it. じゃあ、あとは、いろいろ質問もいっぱいあると思うので、女性の写真の大月を松代草の写真をちょっと見せて、見せていいですか？はい。Number 12。少しどこへ？少しずつこう流してたかもしれない。Could you show maybe next slides? She can't. Next one, please. はい。これはいいですか？これは？ So the upper left photograph of huge blue plastic bales. Do you see that? That's contaminated soil in those bales. Basically, they scrape and then put in those huge bags and then leave. They can't move elsewhere, so just put on the side of the road and things like that. You would think that the people who are doing the work, scraping, that's a radioactive material handlers. You think that they will have some protective gears, but she had seen people without even wearing a mask, simple mask. Hmm?
Had there been rain prior, which would have gotten it deeper into the soil?
Well, this was probably several months, weeks later, so yeah. いや、雨なんか降ってもう土に染み込んでますよね、ずっとね。
ああ、もうそういうのはあんまり関係ないみたいです
So
ね。
they don't even care about that.
もうやるということ。
Yes, 彼女はそういうの大変だって、思うけど。
ああ、そうですね。
Yes, they have to accept themselves in the village. So the Geiger counter photograph in the middle, it basically says 0.9. That's a microsieverts per hour. あれお家ですよね。お家ですよね。
ああ、これね、うちの中の。
That's a picture she took sometime last year at her house, inside the house. Sorry. So this was a reading inside the house, and this whole thing about sieverts, microsieverts, very confusing. So this is my ちょっと説明していいですか？そのマイクロシーベルトについて。説明してもいいですか？私も。So this is something that Arne Gunderson, if you know, who's a nuclear engineer, explained to me. So NRC, your government, says that the average general public recommended dose limit per year for general public is 1 millisieverts. If you divide that by 365 days and 24 hours, you get sieverts per hour. And so if you just simply calculate that, it comes down to 0.114. If you simply calculate. That doesn't take into account radiation exposure that you might get from food or anything like that. It's just simply outside, ambient. And so to have 0.9 in her room, at her house, that's like multiple times that recommended limit for general public in this country. So that kind of shows you what the number means. Actually, in her case, you would think that the outside is higher, right? And in my experience, yes, there are higher places outside, of course, under the drip line and stuff like that. But in her case, maybe there are some invisible hotspots even within the home. So this is basically to stress that you can't really tell, even you step aside like 2 feet like this, the radiation level might change. So this is just a fact that she happens to take radiation level in a house where it was 0.9, but it's just that particular spot has a high radiation level, and outside could be lower or higher depending where you're standing. I'm sorry, this is very confusing, but that's how radiation behaves, I don't know if you can really see, but the lower left photo, it has a little black dot right there, yeah? This is on the pavement, and this is still anecdotal, but enough people have said, so this is fairly established fact, but those black dot moss-like substance are highly radioactive, and those are formed after the accident. So there's a rumor that the radioactive particles kind of combined with something on the surface and forming some moss-like substance, and just very, very high radioactive. So the picture on the right is her house, and you see like a tall plant material, grass-like thing, right? That is actually unusual looking evening primrose. And she thinks it's a mutant. She has never seen such a tall evening primrose that, goes above the window of the, house, basically. You see, it's like almost like going like a vine, and it's just so tall. And she has never seen that. She had never seen that before the accident. So this is just a fact. There's no scientific explanation because she didn't do DNA test or anything, but that's what she witnessed at her home. So even though this kind of reality existed in Kawauchi last year, because government, compared to other towns in the vicinity of the reactor, Kawauchi had relatively, lower radiation level. They basically said, Kawauchi is safe and yada, yada, yada. And so they decided that because the government insisted that the people can go home, the village people who hear the government edict feel like, well, I wish they could have said, you cannot go back. It would be so much simpler if they had said, you can't go back. Now that the people felt like, they were almost given a false choice to go back. So the now onus is back on them, villagers. And
Will they get any compensation?
で、その賠償っていうのは村の人にはどうなんですか? So, 2 or 3 months after the accident, basically, towns and villages who were forced to evacuate, including her village, all the residents got the sort of a temporary compensation up front, just across the board. So it's about $10,000 per household, roughly. And so eventually each household that got that money. But that was supposed to be just temporary, just to ease the initial, cost and everything. And the real restitution should come later. But that second payment is very hard to come by. People applying for compensation now, but they haven't really, she hasn't seen the actual money.
100万生産するっていう。
Huh?
100万生産。
So she's one of the people who filed a class action suit against the TEPCO, asking for compensation, but she has not seen any dime beyond the initial 10 grand. Once Kawauchi was declared safe, other towns are now following suit. And this is August of last year. Town of Naraha, which is a lot closer to the reactor, they basically allowed citizens to go back. And this is midnight. They did some kind of a media fanfare and ceremony, just big to do, and then opening the gate kind of stunt they pulled. So basically, in 5 years, maybe all the towns and villages around Fukushima Daiichi reactor might be returned. And they've been talking about setting up new schools, combined school system. And to her, this is unusual, abnormal. It's crazy. So even when the officials come in and take a radiation level at school, kids are playing outside. No protection, but then adults are wearing those masks and just going like this. And when once now, I guess a congressperson came visited the site, and he was wearing complete protective gear, and the resident basically went berserk because it was just anyway, yeah. So if you peruse the newspaper headlines, television headlines in Fukushima, majority of them says back to normal. It's all let's work together to return. All those cheery, very hopeful things. And they rarely talk about the health effects. She fears that the truth about the health consequence will be concealed. Even though officially they say nobody died from the Fukushima accident, that is not true, she says. She personally knows several people who died in those affected areas, older people including, and just died. Some unknown causes, but some maybe just exacerbated the health problems that they had. People died. So basically, the government insists that if you get sick, it has nothing to do with radiation. It's isolated incident. And I don't know if you knew about the thyroid situation. Basically, several children, 3 confirmed already had surgery, but 7 more suspected having thyroid cancer. Out of just the 38,000 or so kids tested from Fukushima, just a small sample. And that's a high ratio already. I mean, kids age, I think under 15 or 18, I'm sorry, I can't remember. But then even that, government's conclusion was it's too soon to manifest from the Fukushima accident. So this has nothing to do with Fukushima accident. Not in her village, no. And even in towns and villages where they had the stock of iodine pills, most of them, she thinks maybe one town, but most of them did not distribute because they were all waiting for the Japanese government to give them order. So those photos shows that the left one is the town newsletter and showing the beginning of the new school year. So the cheerful kids, they all lined up and taking photograph. And the one on the right is the sometime last year, I think August, rebuilding festival. So they had vendors coming in and just promoting the return. So basically, even though there are some hot spots, even in low radiation level Kawauchi, a lot of data is concealed, and people are told that it's safe, and so there's will to believe what the government says too. But for the most part, what I really like to stress is that we just have to protect ourselves. Use your own judgment. Do not trust your government, and because they're not going to help you. So, in conclusion, she's currently working to find the new frontier place for people to relocate. So she's putting a lot of efforts into it, but also she would like to be. Advocate the fact that nuclear power is closely tied to wars, the existence of wars. And she said that during the rally speech. But as long as there are wars, there will be nuclear power. But that's to stop the war from on the earth. It's not something Japanese people can do alone, and that's something that the people here and in Japan, all over the world, have to work together. And otherwise, people in Fukushima, people in Japan, and people in Fukushima, they'll be completely forsaken, and their tragedy will be useless. So I hope this is something that we can work together. Thank you.